Welcome everyone to this remote council meeting. While the CEO and I are located in the council chamber at the Civic Centre, the remainder of your councillors are coming to you live from their home and other places of work. This meeting is being held remotely because of COVID-19 restrictions are still in place. Council is under advice from the state government and the Chief Health Officer to conduct council meetings online. We will try to mimic our normal live webcast as much as possible, but because this is a remote meeting, there may be a few technical issues. I ask that you be patient with us. If, for some reason, the webcast drops out, remember that the meeting will be placed on our website afterwards so that you can watch it at your leisure. On that note, let's get started. Is there any apologies, Mr. Benny?
No apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Council acknowledges and pays respects to the past, present and future traditional owners and elders of this nation and their continuance of culture, spiritual and educational practice of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Item number 1.3, offering of prayer. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer this evening was delivered by Reverend James Peters from St James Anglican Church, Dandenong, and will be repeated by Councillor Sophie Tan, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Please stand.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. God of all creation, we pray tonight for our Mayor and for our City Councillors as they meet together. We pray that you would grant to our leaders, to all who serve in public life, wisdom and skill, imagination and energy, and protect them from the temptation of self-serving. Guide them in all their decision-making so that our city might truly be a city of opportunity for all its residents. We pray that you would bless our councillors with insight and with wisdom, that we pray that they might work together in harmony for the common good. We pray that you would prosper our city and its businesses, that our city council and its officers might be agents of growth and of blessing for this community. We pray for new projects that are in planning, that they would come in fruition in good time. We pray for our community during this COVID pandemic, for the health and welfare, for our residents, and especially for the most vulnerable. We commend to you our councillors here in tonight's meeting, and we seek your blessing in all of its proceedings. In the name of God, amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Please be seated. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. I need a mover, please.
Moved, Councillor O'Reilly.
Moved by
Second,
Councillor O'Reilly.
Councillor Dark.
Councillor Dark is seconded. Is there any questions, councillors? No questions. Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny, is there any disclosures of interest?
No disclosures received, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. 1.6, adoption of Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Formoso. Is that you?
Can second it.
All right, Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2, Officers' Report Part 1, documents for sealing. Moved by
Councillor Tan.
Councillor Tan.
Lim.
And seconded by Councillor Lim. Is there any questions, councillors?
Just not a question. Just want to congratulate Kylie Stevenson,
Yep.
Community Services, for 10 years of service to the City of Greater Dandenong. and Zachary Ryan, he's the appointment of the officer for the interim of appointment of authorised officer under the Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions, councillors, or comments? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.2, documents for tabling. 2.2.1, petitions and joint letters. Moved by
Councillor
Formoso,
Seconded by
seconded by Councillor Lim. Is there any questions, councillors?
Yeah, I've got a question, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Tan.
Just to the relevant officer, could you please advise what's this petition about and what's the next step? Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Bosman, please. No, not you. Mr. Keesley, is that you then? Someone answer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. That's me. This matter with regards to parking, we'll consider that as part of our parking review committee. I understand a letter has already gone to the proponent advising them of that fact, so I'll certainly follow up and keep councillors informed as we proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keesley. Is there any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.3, statutory planning application. 2.3.1, planning decisions issued by Planning Minister's Delegate, June 2021. Moved by
Councillor Dark.
Councillor Dark, seconded by
Councillor Milkovich.
Councillor Milkovich. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 2.3.2, Planning Delegate Decisions issued June 2021. Moved by
Madam Mayor.
Councillor
Second,
Mametti,
Councillor Dark.
seconded by Councillor Dark. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 3, question times public. Thank you, Mr. Benny.
Mayor and councillors, there are 19 public questions this evening. The first 4 of these are very similar in their thrust and purpose. So what I propose to do is to read the first 4 questions, and then I believe Mr. Bosman can provide a comprehensive response to them all.
Thank you.
The first is from Brian Conguis of Dandenong. Apologies for the mispronunciation. I read in the minutes of the last council meeting the answer to the public question about the proposed adoption of the Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy at a September council meeting. If the most effective thing Greater Dandenong Council can do to increase canopy cover on private land is to put controls on the removal of large canopy trees on private land, why wouldn't this matter be decided on first before the Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy is finalised, rather than revise the content of the Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy only months after, if the local law is adopted? The second related question, in our opinion, is from Judith Size of Dingley Village. In the council report from the 24th February 2020, officers wrote that without increasing canopy cover on private land, Greater Dandenong canopy cover will stay around the current low level of 9.9%. Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy has set a goal of 15% tree canopy by 2028. More than halfway through 2021, it is almost certainly still under 10%. Can the council give a credible strategy on how it will achieve its own goal without a local law? The third related question is from Louisa Willoughby of Springvale. The draft Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy makes a good case for a large increase of council education activities across all demographics for education in the value of large canopy trees for addressing climate change. However, it also indicates no extra resourcing for this activity. How will a large education program be funded if there is no education budget for it? And the fourth related question is from Pam Naylor of Noble Park. The draft Greater Dandenong Urban Forest Strategy contains no proposal for significant tree register on private land, unlike other councils have. Why not? Mr Bosman, I think, can provide a response that covers all matters, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through yourself to the submitters, and thanks to all the submitters for the questions regarding the urban forest strategy and the potential tree protection local law. The urban forest strategy documents will establish council's future strategic direction for increasing canopy coverage on private land. And as such, it is important that this strategy is adopted first to set the direction. Once the position on the urban forest strategy is established, council will then consider whether to further pursue a local law for the protection of certain trees on private land. In terms of potentially having to amend the urban forest strategy document shortly after its adoption if the local law is pursued, this will not be required, as the local law implementation will run as a separate process that will ultimately sit within the council's local laws and not within the urban forest strategy itself. With regard to meeting the goal of 15% canopy coverage by 2028, officers remain of the view that the urban forest strategy and potential local law, along with the existing Greening Our City strategy that continues to result in significant tree plantings, as well as considerable plantings in council reserves and other council-owned land, will see council well placed to achieve the goal of 15% coverage by 2028. Turning to the issue of a significant tree register as posed within the question, officers have proposed not to pursue this as part of the strategy, as a register such as this has no statutory weight, meaning it provides no protection to the tree other than highlighting that it exists. It does not prevent the removal. Officers are of the view that there are more effective ways of protecting vegetation through education and a potential local law, which would provide a level of protection for certain trees. And finally, Madam Mayor, through yourself to the questioners, with regard to funding the urban forest strategy, the associated action plan sets out some projects that are proposed as part of ongoing operational budgets, and others will be subject to annual budget bids at the proposed time of their implementation. This is similar to the process followed for the implementation of almost all strategies across council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
Yes, the next question is from Brian Conguis of Dandenong. In light of Knox City Council's recent adoption of a day and night cat curfew, is the City of Greater Dandenong going to do anything of substance to address the problem of cats roaming day and night here in Dandenong? Mr Bosman, Madam Mayor.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, again through yourself, thank you for your question, Brian. The issue of cat curfews is something our animal management team is exploring as part of the work in its preparation of Council's new domestic animal management plan. It is currently proposed that a draft discussion plan will be going up for community consultation and feedback towards the end of next month. And I'm envisaging that we will be in a position to present the outcomes of that consultation and feedback to Council early in October at a Council briefing session. As a side note, I should add that the introduction of cat curfews by their nature will only impact on our owned population of cats, in other words, those that are owned and registered, but will not address the larger problem we see from the unowned, semi-owned or feral cat population. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
The next question is from Tina Conguis of Dandenong. At the last council meeting, the Director of Community Services, Martin Fiddler, said that endorsement of council's position regarding the scope of the Dandenong Community Hub is planned to be presented to a council meeting in August. How can the council be locking in the scope of the Dandenong Community Hub before any concept designs are shown to the public? The scope of the new Dandenong Aquatic Centre was first set at a council meeting only after a concept design was shown to the public. The scope of the Keysborough South Community Hub was only set in 2020 after 2 rounds of concept designs were put to the public. Residents respond to visuals. How can the council be seen to be sincerely consulting if they make the key decisions before the public see any concept designs? Mr. Fiddler, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Tina, for your question. As outlined on Council's website project page, Council's consultant has commenced the development of a concept plan, a site option analysis and a business case. Stage work on these items are being regularly presented to Council for review throughout their development. Part of this process is an endorsement of a preferred site and also service inclusions. This endorsement is necessary to provide the consultants with clear guidance for the development of the concept plan and business case. Once completed, the draft concept plan and site analysis results will be exhibited through an extensive round of community engagement and consultation. Having then considered and incorporated community feedback, only then will the business case and concept design be finalised. Information is provided on Council's website and contact details are there if yourself or any resident has any questions about the Dandenong Community Hub or any would like to seek any further clarification. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Dom Bakari of Keysborough. Firstly, I'd like to thank Mr. Benny for making the time for visiting the building site at 448 Shelton Road, Keysborough. Mr. Benny, please give us an update into his findings as reported last week and what corrective action plans will be implemented at this building site, and in particular Lot 1 with all the safety concerns publicly reported in many media outlets. I can advise Mr. Bakari in response that there are no particular findings at this point in time. There are numerous observations and that in conjunction with a number of officers who are now engaged in this project, there have been 8 key issue areas to be reviewed. These include the location of a power pole adjacent to a particular dwelling itself being Lot 1, the front setbacks of Lot 1, pedestrian paths in a number of different directions into the residential subdivision and also into the adjacent mixed-use development, easements in the multi-unit development site and easements in the multi-unit development site that are alleged to have arisen from the loss of public open space, and parking provided on both sites, multi-unit development and the mixed-use development. The matter, as I've indicated, is now being indicated by a joint group of town planning, engineering, building and traffic safety officers to look at all of the issues that have been highlighted. Council has also engaged external third-party specialists in each of the specialist disciplines to potentially provide a peer review of work that has been undertaken and also to report on options that aim to address or readdress matters that have come to our attention. In some cases, due to the need to engage peer review consultants, that would take up to 4 weeks for that work to be done. So that in itself defines the period of the outcome. And I should emphasise as well that there are 2 key areas of focus, one being the current construction period, when there have been identified as some potential hazards on site arising out of the construction zones, and post-construction, that is when the development is planned to be completed and what will then present as a permanent development for public use. Having considered all of these matters, we hope to be in a position by the end of August to be submitting a report to Council on our findings in relation to this particular matter.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Mr. Benny again.
The next question is from Dom Bakari of Keysborough. When will a traffic study be conducted on Chapel Road, Keysborough, between Shelton Road and Hutton Road? This question has been raised before with no feedback on a planned date. Mr. Kearsley, Madam.
Mr. Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Mr. Bakari for his question. With regards to the question, there are two parts that I'd like to answer. The first, I'm presuming from Mr. Bakari's question that the study that he's referring to relates to the matter of the intersection of Villiers and Chapel with regards to the introduction of the new Keysborough South Community Hub. As previously advised, if it is regarding that particular matter, once the construction is completed, we will undertake some further assessment with regards to the particular traffic movements in that particular precinct. If it's regarding a broader aspect of traffic review, then that matter, I think, is also to be undertaken with regards to what we have previously done in that area, is the Keysborough South Area Traffic Management Plan. And I'd be happy to share that particular document with Mr. Bakari to see if that's what he is also referring to. Otherwise, I'd be happy to get an email directly from Mr. Bakari with regards to the broader reference that he's made of Chapel Road between Cheltenham Road and forgotten the road furthest to the south of that matter. So that's something that, again, I can talk to Mr. Bakari about to get confirmation of the specifics of the study that he's referring to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is also from Don Bakari of Keysborough. I've been contacted by many local residents and dog park users expressing safety concerns we all see with the new extension of Villiers Road, which is soon to be open to the public. There are no speed signs in place, as well as there are not enough speed calming devices. There is one long stretch of road that runs beside the bypass that could become the new Sandown drag strip. To avoid any rat race, can Council address this safety concern? Mr. Keasley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Bakari, for the question. We're hoping that the new extension to Villiers Road will be open in mid-August. Further to this, there have been 5 platform humps positioned along the length of Villiers Road to assist with controlling vehicle speeds. The maximum spacing between these speed humps is only 200 metres, which we believe should discourage most drivers from attempting to accelerate to inappropriate speeds before the next speed hump. Traffic engineers will monitor the volumes and speeds once the road has been opened for several months and new travel patterns are established to determine if any future actions may be necessary. With regards to posted speed limit signs, that's something that we can certainly look into. However, the default speed limit for built-up areas within Victoria is 50 kilometres an hour. However, there are yellow precautionary safety advisory signs located at each speed hump advising people to travel at 20 kilometres an hour. And we would hope, of course, that the majority of people would adhere to at least that advisory speed limit. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Heather Lewis of Keysborough. Council is responsible for street lighting on Chapel Road. The distance between light poles between Denichi Drive and Killarney Drive don't meet community safety standards. A large dark section needs another 1 or 2 lights on the poles to ensure community safety standards are met. Department of Transport spokesman confirmed the lamppost legislation exists in Section 82 of the Road Traffic Regulations Act 1984. The actual words are street lighting furnished by means of lamps placed not more than 200 yards apart. 7th of June 2007. More lighting for added safety is required, please. Mr. Keasley, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Lewis, for the question. Council officers have been out today to have a look and inspect the particular issues that have been raised, and we can advise that the furthest distance between any 2 of the 4 lights installed along this section of road is approximately 180 metres, with all other separating distances being much less than that. Council officers have scheduled a lux reading along this section of Chapel Road to occur within the next exercise, which typically occur once a month. to verify that the level of lighting meets community safety standards. Any deficiency that might be identified as part of that verification process will be followed by a wider community consultation exercise to help determine whether new lighting will be required and also then subsequently installed. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Zen Jonlagic of Dandenong. As a resident, a nurse and a mother of 2 young boys, I have concerns about the council's proposal to build a Dandenong community hub without children's services. People have been forced to separate and distance from one another already for far too long. So I find it difficult to believe that our council is prepared to further isolate our community by considering such a nonsense plan. I understand that children can come to your hub, but best to remind their carers to bring iPads and chargers. A successful community hub should be a vibrant space that is inclusive and welcoming to all. Why do you believe it is a good plan to segregate our community in such a way? This would be discriminating against everyone that would benefit from using the service a hub can offer. Does this council believe Dandenong residents deserve less from a community hub than the residents of our neighbouring suburbs? Do you want Dandenong to have a thriving community centre? My family does. Mr. Fiddler could respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Zen, for your question. Council has not yet made a final determination regarding the scope of services and facilities for the inclusion in the Dandenong Hub. A range of information is being provided to councillors on population demographics and data on current and future projected kindergarten enrolments as outlined in the Department of Education Kindergarten Infrastructure Plan. This information, together with feedback from the recent community consultation and the review of the 2020 Dandenong Hub Needs Analysis, is being provided to councillors for further consideration. An endorsement of Council's position regarding the scope of the Dandenong Community Hub is currently planned to be presented to a council meeting in late August or early September. Information is provided on Council's website and contact details are provided for yourself or any residents who have any questions or who would like further clarification on the Dandenong Community Hub. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Fiddler. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Gay Guest of Keysborough. After weeks of denial, CGD has conceded that there are questions, issues and concerns over a controversial townhouse project in Keysborough. PLN 14/0721 is another dense build on the corner of Noble Street and Corrigan Road. 7 units on a 1,522 square metre block with 3 dwelling driveways between the existing Milk Bar premises and a busy intersection with pedestrian crossings and a common driveway metres from the corner in Corrigan Road for the other 4 units on this block. Council has been asked to review this build while it was progressing and have ignored resident objections and concerns. Where will these residents park, including overflow cars? How will the extra bins impact passing traffic on collection day? Where will visitors to this complex park? Now that residents can see the built form of these 7 dwellings, it is being compared to the Chelton Road complex and questions are being asked. Why would Council have even recklessly stamped this application when there is no setbacks or open space? 2 units have fenced off areas to give them privacy, yet this narrows the tiny common driveway. A number of questions to the Council have been ignored by Council departments who have recently resisted public concerns about the current construction phase and the planned future phase. Councillors and officers face the risk of criminal negligence and civil lawsuits if a resident or pedestrian was killed or injured at the intersection because of this build. This is a classic example of council failure, and it is not too late to remedy any defects before occupancy. This needs a review ASAP. Mr. Bosman can respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you, and through yourself to Ms. Guest. This planning permit for 7 dwellings was approved on the 11th of April 2016 at the council meeting of that date. As part of the assessment of this application, it was assessed against the planning scheme at that time, including the provisions of Res Code and Council's residential development and neighbourhood policy, and was considered to be compliant. Issues regarding this development have been raised previously, and after review at that time, the proposal was found to be compliant with the required level of parking being provided, including a visitor space and the required setbacks and secluded private open space being provided. And I might also mention, Madam Mayor, to Ms. Guest, that there is a mechanism available to all people that find or are aggrieved by the decision of council at the time that those decisions are made, to take the matter on appeal to VCAT as an independent arbiter in these matters. This is a different type of housing to the traditional single dwelling on a lot. However, the Victoria planning provisions, which make up the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme, encourage a mix of housing types to, amongst other reasons, assist in providing housing for Melbourne's ongoing population growth and help with housing affordability, which reduces other significant social issues such as financial stress and homelessness. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
Next question is also from Gay Guest of Keysborough. Footprint Melbourne 2015 is a Year 9 topic this term, which focuses on increasing fresh foods for all amongst our city fringe farms to preserve future perishable food production. Surprisingly, a wide variety of our food source comes from neighbouring LGAs, including Casey and Cardinia. But sadly, there is no mention of our own green wedge. Why? 40 to 90% of valuable perishable food crops are grown in these areas. It adds $2.45 billion to our economy and 21,000 jobs. The idea is also to allow young farmers to be mentored by experienced landowners to carry on the tradition. Councils buy this food for Meals on Wheels, childcare centres and hospitals. In Canada, they have the Golden Horseshoe and a local Green Belt Fresh label to encourage purchasing locally produced food along cycling and walking tracks. The stresses on fresh food products is pandemic. Demands food, fire, drought, climate change, and how food past its use by date is disposed of, e.g. landfill or FOGO. It was highlighted yesterday when a Gippsland producer sold their produce to locals in several municipalities in a drive-through, so their stock was purchased and not destroyed. Like Canada, we have our own permanent agricultural land reserve in the Green Wedge, but instead Council is allowing this to be land banked. Why isn't Council proactively protecting our Green Wedge from land banking and encouraging pride in our local food production with a food label to help residents to seek and purchase locally produced food? This should be married with any community garden policy, as well as our food security is finite and populations growing. Mr. Bosman can respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to yourself in answer to Ms. Guest. Council's Green Wedge Management Plan contains a key objective to, and I quote, support the expansion and diversification of agricultural activity, close quote, with this objective being supported by a number of actions which include, and I quote, actively encourage the establishment of niche and specialised agricultural activities in the Green Wedge, particularly those supporting food security, and to support the Greater Dandenong Regional Food Strategy initiatives in the Green Wedge. Madam Mayor, policy regarding this has been included in the planning scheme, and work continues across Council to further implement the food strategy to encourage greater use of Green Wedge land for local food production. Council has also sought to further protect this land by retaining the minimum lot sizes in the Green Wedge and maintaining its clear position of preserving the Green Wedge. However, as the vast majority of Green Wedge land is in private ownership, it is ultimately up to the landowner as to whether they use the land for food production or not. In terms of land banking, Council does not have any powers to prevent this potentially occurring in the Green Wedge, as is the case in any other land owned. However, it does continue to lobby the state government to consider options to address this, given that many councils on the urban fringe of Melbourne that have Green Wedge land face similar challenges to those that we do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Mr. Benny, please.
The next question is from Maria Sampi of Dandenong North. When is the market audit report that was done before the council election 2020 going to be made public to the residents? What has council got to hide? In response, I can advise Mrs Sampi that Council was fully briefed on all aspects of that independent and confidential report when it was completed. The need and circumstances have not changed, and the report remains confidential to Council under Section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020. All learnings from the report are being progressively implemented.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Mr Benny again.
The next question is also from Maria Sampi of Dandenong North. In June 2019, the neighbours living next to 17 Leman Crescent Noble Park complained about next door building a 3-metre high dividing fence. What has Council done about it? Mr Bosman can respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Through yourself, I can update Ms Sampi that council officers that the matter has been dealt with by the Magistrates Court in the first instance, and that council officers are taking the further appropriate action in accordance with the Building Act 1993 to further resolve the matter. I don't think there's much more that I can say other than court action has been taken. Officers are following up in terms of the Building Act. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
The next question is also from Maria Sampi of Dandenong North. How much has been spent so far of ratepayers' money in the Dandenong Council defending Sluggate against iCook Foods? In response, I can advise Mrs Sampi that Council has expended and will continue to expend funds only where determined necessary to respond to any allegations in the referenced matter. As a substantive matter is listed for hearing in the Supreme Court, no aspect of Council's response or defence will be shared until that matter is heard.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Mr Benny again, please.
The next question is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. There are a number of safety and amenity issues that parents have been telling me regarding the playground at the Springvale Community Hub. A, the gates on the Grace Park Avenue fence don't have child-proof locks, so children aren't easily getting out. B, the gates previously promised on the Springvale Road side have not been installed yet. C, the toilets, particularly the family change rooms, are frequently unavailable or unclean. Can these please be addressed, or if they are in the process of being addressed, what is the current status and timeframes for resolution? Mr Fiddler can respond, Madam Mayor.
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Matthew, for your question. In relation to question A about the gates on Grace Park Avenue, the gates onto Grace Park Avenue do meet playground standards, therefore no child-safe locks were fitted. Question B, the gates previously promised on the Springvale Road side have not been installed yet. Gates were not requested for Springvale Road. Although the design was already compliant at handover, a fence has been installed to stop children running directly onto the Springvale Road, should they be in the vicinity of the playground area. Gates have not been installed as they might impose an issue for universal access and are not required for the space to be compliant. In relation to question C, around the toilets and particularly the family changing rooms, toilets are cleaned daily and staff are on site to receive resident feedback. We have not received any complaints about the cleanliness of the family change rooms. Some of the rooms have been unavailable due to the scheduling of some minor repairs, but we'll take extra efforts at making sure that these rooms are observed and to ensure their cleanliness. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Mr Benny, please.
Next question is also from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. The commercial development between 411 and 417 Princess Highway Noble Park is set right up against the street, i.e. without any setback, and has no landscaping. How was that allowed under the Greater Dandenong Planning Scheme? Mr Bosman, respond.
Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself to Mr Kerwin. A planning permit to develop the use of the land at the address 409 to 415 Princess Highway Noble Park for warehouses and showrooms was approved in October 2013. The site is located in the mixed use zone and the proposal was compliant with the planning scheme at that time. It is noted that the development abuts the boundary with the service road to the Princess Highway and Fantonia Road. And the reason for this was to provide a high quality urban design outcome with an active frontage, as occurs with many of the commercial developments fronting major roads. In this instance, significant glazing is provided to the frontage to ensure high levels of activation. This arrangement also results in the car park being hidden from the Princess Highway and matches the built form setback on the opposite side of, or the opposite corner of Fintonia Road. In addition, consideration was given to the residential development to the rear of the site, and by having the development abut Princess Highway, a buffer was able to be provided between the development and the adjoining residential development. It is also noted that landscaping is required along the western, southern, and part of the eastern boundaries. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny, please.
The final question this evening is from Matthew Kerwin of Noble Park. There has been a number of wattles planted along Railway Parade between Belfort Street and Jones Road, Dandenong. Some of them have died. Can the dead ones please be replaced? Mr Kearsley, Madam Mayor.
Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr Kerwin, for the question. The simple answer is that the dead trees will be removed and replacement trees will be planted and completed hopefully by the end of September. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Mr Benny, public questions taken on notice?
Yep. There was a single public question taken on notice at the last meeting. It was from Gay Guest of Keysborough in relation to Council's position post-COVID and utilisation of Council facilities. It was partially answered on the night, but has now been fully answered, and the detail is included in the minutes.
Thank you very much. Item number 4, Officers' Report Part 2. 4.1, Contracts 4.1.1, Contract number 2021-38, Capital Works Annual Supply Contract, Schedules of Rates. I need a mover, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll move.
Moved by Councillor Gerard, second by
Councillor Formoso, happy to second that.
Second by Councillor Formoso. Is there any questions, councillors?
Councillor Dark, I have a question.
Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My question to the relevant officer, I note that we have within our tender contracts here local content being used, particularly with local employment and local supplies. I know that a lot of tenders which this council agrees to, there's a lot of continuity given by a lot of the contractors that they will attempt to use local supplies and local labour. I just want to verify from the appropriate officer whether or not we provide random spot checks to find out if in fact the employees are local and if in fact they do then buy local in the tenders, and how often we do randomly audit them.
Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. That's something that I'll certainly have to look at in terms of the timing of who does the contracts. That would sit generally within my group, but also within the procurement and contract section. So if you leave that with me, I'll make sure I get an appropriate response to you with regards to the local content auditing process.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Any other questions, councillors?
Yes, Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Tan.
Just to the relevant officer, one of the tender called Link Group. So it's been recommended on our list, which has got the lowest score, plus there's no response provided in the report. I just want to find out why.
Mr Kearsley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. With regards to that one, they were still considered within the scoring to be appropriate to have within the contract offering for the undertaking of the works for council. What we basically do is have a broader number of contractors available for us to broaden the choice of which contract team we want to choose for different sorts of works based on the very extensive nature of works that this contract covers, which is on page 29 of the council report. You can see from that there are a significant range of variation of works that's required. So the bigger the variation in contractors that we have, the better. As you could see, the only ones that we've basically excluded are those that failed the contract tender process, which was included in the appendix.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Councillor Tan, have you got another question?
No, thank you.
Is there any other questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Milkovich.
Sorry. sorry, my apologies, just a bit of a, do we, when, just a question to relevant officer, when these tenders are put out, is the local community, when I say community, local companies, are they actually informed about as to what is happening and encourage local companies to apply? Because I know some of these companies that are suggested as being awarded contracts actually are not as local as we want them to be. Is there any encouragement for local companies to participate and to advertise, Madam Mayor?
Mr. Keesley, please.
Yes, there is. Certainly we encourage as many of our companies as possible, and that's some work that's done through these, not just the Economic Development Group, but also the Greater Dandenong Business Group, to encourage local companies to participate. They do, however, have to go through a registration process because most of our tenders are what we call e-tenders. So there is a requirement for for those that are interested to register for projects and works and tenders, and then they become available to basically apply as they see fit based on their work criteria. We do try our best to encourage the local ones, and we do have a significant number of those local ones that do participate. And when I say local, we also encourage those within the broader region to also apply as best they can when they can.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Any other questions, councillors? Any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.2, Policy and Strategy. 4.2.1, Legislative Compliance Policy. Sorry. I need a mover, please.
Madam Mayor, happy to move that.
Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by
Councillor Foster.
Councillor Foster, seconded. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried.
Madam Mayor, can I just make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Garrard.
Madam Mayor, I just want to thank the relevant officers who developed this framework. I think it provides great reassurance that the council is compliant under its various legislative obligations, and I just want to thank the relevant officers who have put this together.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Item number 4.3, other. 4.3.1, draft minutes of the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee meeting, 10th of June 2021. Moved by
Happy to move that, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Formoso, seconded by
Councillor Foster will second that.
Councillor Foster, thank you. Is there any questions, councillor? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.3.2, report on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings, the 15th and 28th of June and the 5th of July 2021. Moved by
Councillor Tan.
Sorry.
Yeah, happy to move.
Councillor Lim, seconded by
Councillor Tan.
Councillor Tan. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 4.3.3, list of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by
I'm happy to move that, Councillor.
Councillor Lim, seconded by
Councillor Mamedi.
Councillor Mamedi, thank you. Is there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item number 5, notices of motion. There is no notices of motion. Item number 6, reports from councillors, delegates and councillors' questions. Councillor Dart, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I just have a few questions this evening. My first question is to the relevant officer regarding the Rowley Allen Reserve. I raised this in the last council meeting to do with the raised pavement, which a resident had injured herself on and required medical advice from there. And then on top of that as well, I also raised issues to do with the light poles and the fact that, well, I suppose whilst we're in lockdown, it hasn't counted, but to do with the issues with the shadowing and the lights, which systemically have issues. I just want to get an update from the relevant officer where we're at with both of those issues, whether they've been repaired and fixed or how far away they are.
Mr. Keesley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe the matter of the uneven paving or footpath was fixed late last week, and the issue of the floodlights or the lighting is somewhat more of an issue due to the fact that we're having to wait some extensive time for parts coming from overseas. And unfortunately, as we're finding, there are significant delays due to COVID with regards to a lot of trade and a lot of parts coming from overseas. So we're hopeful that we could provide a clarity of that advice in the coming week.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question I have has come from a resident who lives in Goodman Drive, Noble Park. It was raised with me last week that they commute down the end of Goodman Drive through a very narrow walkway through Tower Court and then across Mull Creek through the housing complex to Yarraman Railway Station. And there's been quite a few residents from Noble Park that take that way to commute. They've been saying that in the side alleyways and laneways that it's been quite dark and that there's been an increase in graffiti and unsocial behaviour that has been occurring as people walk through that area. Apparently, mainly it's between crossing over the Mull Creek Bridge and then the second part is in that small alleyway between Goodman Drive. I was just wondering if council could please just have a look and see whether there's anything we could do in terms of additional lighting or anything like that to sort of brighten the area to make it look a bit better.
Mr. Keesley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. What we'll do is we'll best to undertake a lux assessment or a lighting assessment to determine whether or not it needs to be brightened or some action taken with further light installation. Once we've determined that, we are then in the hands of some of the lighting companies to undertake that work. But first thing we'll do is the assessment, and then we'll certainly advise you and the resident of the outcome of that.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my final question tonight is to the Director of Planning. I just wanted I believe that there was recently an update to do with the process and how quick Dandenong Council is currently doing with planning applications, SPEARS and main planning applications in terms of our, I suppose, planning department compared to other councils. I just want to find out from the Director of Planning how, in fact, we are tracking.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor Dark, I always like to be the bringer of good news. It's true to say that all councils, as you well know, are required to report on a monthly basis to the state government in terms of a number of metrics, amongst them being that of planning applications that are completed within the statutory timeframe. For the financial year that's just ended, it's really pleasing to say that this council has ended second in the state in terms of the number of applications completed within the statutory timeframe, something that I think you as councillors and certainly I'm proud of in terms of the statutory planning staff. So it's a consistently high performance. It's not just a monthly blip. And yes, I would like to go on and explain a bit more because it's such good news. But indeed, the statutory planning department have really done the council proud in their ability to consistently perform at this level. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I say that is absolutely phenomenal news, particularly given that the City of Great Dandenong, I would say, is probably one of the most intense councils in terms of the planning schemes that we have, everything from mixed-use zone to high-growth residential to general residential, and to come second in the state is absolutely phenomenal work. So I just want to congratulate your department.
Is that it, Councillor Dark?
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to discuss an issue that's been raised on a few occasions, to me in particular, but something that I've observed myself. I quite often use the Dandenong Creek Trail to not only walk along there, but also to use my bike when I'm taking my kids down to Gels Park. And what I've noticed, and what others have obviously noticed, and there's been a huge amount of incidences that, as a result of this, is that there's pockets of the trail where the path is actually too narrow to be able to handle both pedestrians and cyclists. So one of the things that I've been observing as using the trail is that there's possibly areas where we could widen the path. And if we could please investigate this, because there has been a huge amount of accidents that have occurred, collisions, particularly in the past year, obviously. With COVID, a lot of people getting out and exercising, which has probably been a positive, but the incidences are obviously of concern. So if we could have the appropriate officers investigate that, please.
Mr. Keesley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll certainly look at that. The only issue I will raise, it's not necessarily an impediment, it's something that we would need to consider is some of those reserves are not owned by council, they're owned by Melbourne Water or Parks Victoria. So that's something that we would have to bring to their attention, and then they, of course, would have to act on our request. But I think the first thing we'll do is work out those sections that you refer to that are narrower than they should be, if that's the case, and then take that further with any other authorities if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Formoso, please.
Thanks, Mr. Keesley. Yeah, I'm aware of that. So if we could do that, that would be fantastic. Thank you. The other question I have, speaking of trees that have died, I've had a resident that has told me that a couple in Ivan Court, Noble Park North, have died. So if they could please be removed and replaced. I haven't had a chance to personally go and have a look at them due to the lockdown, but if that could be assessed, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Keesley, please.
Certainly, Councillor, if they are dead, then we can send out our officers to go and have a look and then schedule replanting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Formoso?
Yeah, sorry, one more. Unfortunately, as I was travelling to Dandenong Market yesterday, and that Dandenong Market was booming, I might add, yesterday, so that's good news for the traders. What I did notice was that there is still some rubbish along there, Mr. Keesley, and all of the appropriate officers. It's so disappointing to see a lot of the rubbish that I'd mentioned a couple of weeks ago at previous council meetings still hasn't been removed at 4042 Stud Road. It's just awful. And every time I use Stud Road, I'm so disappointed to see the amount of rubbish that's constantly being dumped there. I don't know what else we could do, but could it please be removed in the interim? And if we could look at further trying to rectify this situation, please.
I think that's between Mr. Keesley and Mr. Bosman. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. And I do know that Mr. Kearsley's staff and mine have worked together in the area. We've had some success, but as you mentioned, Councillor Formoso, this is recidivist behaviour. You know, how do we stop it happening? The officers have devoted a fair degree of time to it and will continue to do so until we get a change in behaviour in the area. I will take note of it, and Mr. Kearsley, myself and our staff will reconvene to see what else we can do in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor Formoso?
Thank you very much. That's all from me.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to start off by giving my condolences to the Leonard Street Dandenong family for the loss of their little one just today. Yeah, it was devastating to hear on the news about a little boy losing his life and the family in hospital. So just would like to start off with giving my condolences. And just one question. It's come to my attention, but other residents have also expressed concern to me, and I know that this is not perhaps council property, but I was wondering, Madam Mayor, if the relevant officer could bring it to the attention of the owners of the block of shops on 330 Cheltenham Road, Keysborough, where the Chemist Warehouse is, the gym, and the Shark Fin restaurant. There's, as you drive out onto Cheltenham Road, there is a quite a big pothole, and it's not well lit. And I myself, along with some residents, have been caught up in that pothole and caught by surprise. So I was wondering if the relevant officer, Madam Mayor, could perhaps bring that to the attention of the owners, as there isn't any room to avoid this pothole. You basically get caught by it. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. We are very familiar with this particular pothole. A number of residents have previously raised it with us, and we continue to raise it with the property owner. I'll double check to see when the last time was that we actually did that, and we'll follow up with that particular property owner to remind them of that fact. We are aware of it.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Foster, please.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, yes, I too would like to pass on my sincere condolences to the family affected in the house fire last night in Dandenong. The loss of a child in any family is an enormous tragedy, and in this case, the family were already facing great challenges and had just recently arrived in Dandenong. I'd also like to sincerely thank the many, many people and groups who have come forward today with offers of help, which is testament to the supportive and compassionate community that Dandenong is. I particularly want to thank the Tamil community for coming forward so quickly to offer support. And finally, I just want to say that the council will do all it can to support this family in this very, very sad time. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just prior to lockdown, yourself, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Tan and Councillor Mehdi had the honour of attending the opening of the new facility housing the Australian Animal Protection Society in Keysborough. I wanted to congratulate all those who have worked for so long to bring this into life. It is a fantastic purpose-built facility and will provide high-level care to the animals in need. Hopefully, following lockdown, the official opening will take place very soon and everybody can see this great centre. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to ask a couple of follow-up questions. If I can direct a question to Mr. Bosnan regarding the urban strategy. Mr. Bosnan, your optimism tonight that a 6% increase in tree canopy in 6.5 years without a local law appears to contradict what you said on February the 24th, in which you said that it was not achievable without a local law. Can I have your response to that, please?
Mr. Keasley? Mr.
Madam,
Bosman, sorry.
It's,
Mr. Bosman, yeah.
It's myself,
Sorry.
Madam Mayor. Councillor, it's going to be significantly more difficult to achieve that target if we don't have a way of bringing about the participation of private land owners and the protection of some of the trees on private land. If we're unable to achieve a local law, and I don't want to say all is lost or all is won at this stage, obviously that is part of going forward. But if we don't proceed with a local law, that doesn't mean that I don't look at other ways of trying to achieve that same outcome. It is, as I've just mentioned, you're going to be just that much more difficult to do so. And the other thing, of course, is that when one is trying to create a canopy across the locality, and especially in areas where the population either works or resides, it's almost like trying to have an umbrella from the protection of rain, where you allow holes within that umbrella. You want to have as even a coverage and as complete a coverage as possible to provide that protection. So I don't know if they're in fact in contradiction with each other. It's just that it does become that much more difficult, but it doesn't mean we throw in the towel if we don't get a local law.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. So I'm hearing that you're standing by your February 24th comments. Madam Mayor, I'd just like to have two follow-up questions with Mr. Kearsley regarding the traffic issues in Keysborough South on Chapel Road. Mr. Kearsley, the traffic management plan you refer to, I believe, was conducted in 2019. There has been significant development in Chapel Road subsequently, and I am wondering if this therefore warrants increased monitoring of the traffic on Chapel Road. And I'm also curious about a term that I've never heard before, which was regarding the traffic limits in the new road, the extension of Villiers Road, where you said there were advisory traffic limits. I've never actually heard the term advisory traffic limits, and would this be confusing to people?
Mr. Kearsley, please.
I'll take the last one first. Within Victoria, there are statutory road signs. The ones I'm referring to are the yellow ones that if you're approaching a particular curve or if you're approaching a particular intersection, they are used as advisory, so they're not enforceable. The enforceable road limits are those in the red and the white. So that's the terminology I was using. The roundabouts that you also find and the speed humps that you find throughout the municipality and throughout Melbourne, you'll often find them with a yellow sign next to them. Now that is an advisory saying that you should go over the roundabout, around the roundabout or over the speed hump at 20. If you attempt it at 50, well, in some ways, good luck to you and your car, but they're purely advisory. With regards to the other matter you raised, the Keysborough South traffic management work that's been done by the traffic management team and council, I'm happy to revisit that and have another look at the timing of that. I think the reference that maybe Mr. Bonacci and others are looking at is some of the questions that were around the use of Chapel Road by heavy trucks, and possibly there was a claim that BWs were using them. What I can say is that I'm expecting a fairly comprehensive response to that by the transport team using data to outline how best or how those BWs actually don't use that road and what the actual truck traffic movements are. I'm happy to then engage directly with you and the local residents with those findings. So we haven't just left that question alone. It is something that we've continued to work behind the scenes on, and hopefully that plus an update to the Keysborough South traffic management study will allow for a more up-to-date response to be had.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Kearsley.
Kearsley. So my next question was relating to the HomeCo Centre development, and my question was around the timelines to conduct the 2 independent reviews. I note that Mr. Benny has responded to that, and we can expect something in around about 4 weeks, which is very pleasing. So the second part of that question is we are seeing a lot more, particularly in Keysborough South, high density developments that have exploited the mixed use development zoning. The community are rightly asking how this can happen. Can the council advocate to the State Planning Minister to have this loophole closed?
Mr. Bosman, please.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. I've noted your question, but I'm not sure what loophole you're referring to or how this is being exploited, and thus what advocacy platform there is to be taken forward. I'll take the question on notice tonight, Councillor, and arrange a meeting with you to get a better understanding of what's being sought, and then how do we take that forward. The mixed use zone has been part of the suite of the Victoria planning provisions for a long time, and I'm not aware that there are any loopholes in it, but obviously there is something more behind this, and if you and I can arrange a time to get together, happy to discuss that with you further.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Yes, it's in relation particularly to the HomeCo, which was originally designed, I believe, for commercial development. And when that commercial development didn't come to fruition, then the housing development was then allowed in a mixed-use zone, allowing a greater density because of that particular zoning. When, in fact, if it was housing now being proposed, it should, in fact, revert to a residential zoning. So I'm happy to have that further discussion with you.
Thank you, Councillor
My next
Garrard.
question is, I've had many questions from Keysborough South residents on the management of the Keysborough South Hub. At the last meeting, I was told there would be consultation on the Keysborough South Community Hub management model later this year. Can you provide more detail? Will the various models be put to the public, or just one? Keysborough South residents have been told that there would be a number of options.
Mr Fiddler, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. The Keysborough South Community Hub will have a unique mix of services, including the early years, maternal and child health, library services, community meeting spaces, and outdoor recreation spaces. Some of these functions are functions and services that are provided and managed directly by Council, and the management of early years functions are still yet to be determined. The management model for this new facility, including the management of the early years component, is currently being prepared for review and is due to be presented to a councillor briefing session on the 18th of October. At this briefing session, a community engagement plan for the hub will also be presented and discussed, and once the engagement plan is agreed to, the community consultation will commence within the following month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Fiddler. Councillor Garrard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My next question is, we're now into the 2021-22 financial year, but the Greater Dandenong Sustainability Report for the financial year ending 2020 has not been made public. When will this be made public?
Madam Mayor, that's a question for me.
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Bosman.
Garrett. The 2020 Sustainability Report, Councillor, will be part of the 5-year review. It will form part of the 5-year review of the sustainability strategy. And we're intending to table this at a council meeting in October for adoption. Then thereafter, of course, it becomes a public document.
Thank you,
Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Mr Beasley. My next question was, I recently asked if we could have something on the council webpage about the open spaces purchased in the last couple of years. This was done, thank you, and there has been a very positive reaction to this on the council social media. However, my proposal was really more around promoting these public spaces. Can this be done? Also, the Noble Park residents have been asking why the property purchased at the corner of Railway Parade and Pamela Street was not included. Is there a reason why it was not included? And as that part of Noble Park is short on open space. And what are the timelines for the development of this site to allow public access?
Ms Bragg will answer the first part and then Mr Bosman will answer the second part. Thank you, Ms Bragg.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we have been and are happy to continue actively promoting these sites. Rather than do it all at once, we're promoting them as they are developed and ready for use as public open space. This way, we're able to highlight the specific features and benefits of each new park as they come online. Some recent examples for you are the promotion of the Klaus Street Dandenong site in the February Council newsletter, the Herbert Street Dandenong site in the May Council newsletter, and the Gove Street Springvale in the June Council newsletter. Some of these have also been featured in the local newspaper. So as they become available and ready for the public, we will continue to promote them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Bragg. Mr Bosman, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor, the information on the website was an initial list of sites purchased for open space, and it will be updated shortly to include 218 Railway Parade Noble Park. In terms of your question on the development of this land as open space, this is intended to occur in the 2022/2023 financial year and will be subject to a budget bid at that time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a follow-up question to Ms Bragg. Just in relation to the website, I understand it's a temporary or transient website at the moment. Will that be a permanent, the future plans you have be permanent links to the website?
Ms Bragg, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that will certainly be available on our website in the future. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Next question. What is the status of the Greater Dandenong Zero Emission Council Vehicle Fleet plan, and when is it expected to be finished and made public? There is a lot of interest from members of the public for Greater Dandenong Council to become a role model in the use of electric vehicles.
Mr. Keasley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. The electric vehicle transition plan is currently being finalised, and we're hoping that a draft report will be with us within the next week or two. It is anticipated that the final report will then be completed within the next 2 to 4 weeks. The EV transition plan is a detailed operational document to guide Council's internal fleet purchases over the next 10 years, and the key findings and outcomes will be provided to both EMT and councillors. One of the main challenges which we believe will be highlighted in this plan is the current significant cost of EV vehicles in this particular country. We are paying substantially more than a lot in other countries, but we're hoping that the introduction of a greater variety of vehicles in the next couple of years will allow Council to plan appropriately over a 5 and 10 year period to ensure that we have a good supply of EV vehicles as well as hybrid vehicles. So we hope that that work can be completed within the next month or so, and then we'll certainly bring that to Council for some future for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Councillor Garrard, your 15 minutes is already up.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I have 2 extra questions. I'll table those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lim, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, my first question is regarding to Victoria Avenue Reserve. Would it be possible for a relevant officer to tell me what is the surface area of that park? And also, according to the email from Mr. Jackson, we need 10% of the size of the park or 400 square meter, whichever is less. Therefore, Victoria Avenue Reserve is that comply or not comply to establish the community garden? Thanks.
Madam Mayor, that's a question
Osmond,
for
please.
me. Councillor Lim, I'll have to check for you what the area of the site is and the correspondence from Mr. Jackson that you're referring to. So if I can take that question on notice, I'll get back to you in the next few days. Thank you,
Mr. Bosman.
Thank you. Councillor Lim,
the second question is, almost every week people asking me or complain to me about the crossing at the roundabout of Balmoral Avenue and Buckingham Avenue. Yeah. When we are going to install the zebra crossing or traffic light, have we heard anything from Wick Road regarding to this matter?
Mr. Keasley, please.
At this point, the preference is to have a look at appropriate use of zebra crossings at that particular location, and that's a matter I can take up with the transport team to see how they are progressing with that. There is a matter of pedestrian safety and the use of vehicles with regards to the introduction of zebra crossings on a roundabout. That's something that we need to evaluate. With regards to traffic lights, that is currently something that is not supported by officers due to the nature of the introduction of the traffic lights would add a significant cost to Council, and we would still need to seek the approval from Vic Roads. So if Councillor Lim wishes to discuss the issue of traffic lights, that's something that would have to be put through as a CIP budget bid for ongoing financial years.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. Councillor Lim.
My third question is, sorry about Blamer. Yeah, regarding to lighting in Buckingham Avenue between Queen's Avenue and Windsor Avenue. That street is very busy avenue. And is there any possibility that the council can add more light along that avenue, because very busy street? Yeah.
Again, that's something we would have to undertake some investigation of with regards to the relevant lux lightings. My understanding is, having been there at night time, that it is lit to be appropriate to a pedestrianised area as compared with many residential streets, which it wouldn't have the same level of lighting. But again, that's something that if you wish to, we could have a look at that in terms of whether or not it does meet the standards for a what you'd call a commercial street or a retail street.
Yeah. According
you,
to
Mr.
business owner, complained to me that street is seem to be very dark. It's not suitable for commercial street at all. That's what my understanding, and myself as well. I think that is not suitable for Springvale Activity Center because that's a place where a lot of people come to dining, to shopping in Springvale Activity Center. Thanks, Mr. Bosman.
Thank you, Mr. Keasley. Is that it,
Yeah.
Councillor Lim? Any more questions from you?
Yeah, that's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Mamedi, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the South East Albanian ladies for organising a ladies' night for the National Breast Cancer Foundation, which they raised $38,785, which was a fantastic effort. And that was their inaugural fundraiser. And I'm sure they'll make sure that next year's are bigger and better, and they'll raise a lot more money, they've told me. So something that was 4 ladies came up with the idea that they lost one of their friends a few years ago, and breast cancer is many families have been touched by it. So it was a great night, the ladies told me, and it was a great fundraising event as well. Also, Madam Mayor, we had a round table with the Melbourne City Football Club, a business round table, which we had many local businesses come to Dandenong, and also we had the pleasure of the Brad Rouse, who is from Melbourne City Football Club, who also brought in the championship plate and trophy, and we discussed what their future is going to be in the southeast. And many of the business people that were around that table were people that were part of Team 11. So it was good to see them around the table, and also wanting to get on board with the Melbourne City Football Club and their southeast, what they're trying to do in the southeast. So it was a good catch up. And also, I'd like to also acknowledge the Australian Animal Protection Society. There was a tour that the councillors attended. They were originally where the Keysborough South Primary School was. Their site was acquired, and they had to move into a temporary site for a couple of years. And they've finally made it to their new home, and it looks magnificent. And I'm looking forward to their opening, when the local community can actually go there as well and celebrate. What a wonderful job they've done, and they've got so many volunteers, and it's a really nice place to go. I guess the most area that I like is where you can go and see those cats, and where Councillor Tan actually had about 10 cats around there, and she was patting them, and it was lovely to see that these other animals in the Animal Protection Society get out to better homes where they find these animals on streets where they're nearly about to die actually, and they bring them back to life, and they give them a good home. So it was great to be part of that tour last I think it was probably about 10 or 12 days ago, just before the lockdown. Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just wanting to find out the health study, the human health study for the Dandenong South and Keysborough South area. We were going to write to the Department of Health and Environment Protection Authority, the state MPs, federal MPs. Have we had any response from that notice of motion?
Is that Mr. Bosman, please?
Madam Mayor, thank you. It's myself. Councillor Mameti, no, I'm still working on your notice of motion. And I think it's probably around about time that I give you an update on that. But certainly it is still work that we are progressing through the state government. In fact, there are 2 notices of motion, and we are looking at progressing both notices of motion, one with regard to the health study per se, and the other with regard to the industrial 2 zoning.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Also, another question, Madam Mayor. I read in the journal today building concerns for the Cheltenham Road, and where that Unit 1. It says here the Chief Executive, John Benny, made the concessions after visiting the 452 Cheltenham Road. which now I understand he's got Mr. Keesley and Mr. Bosman working on to come back at late August. My concern is why don't we issue a stop work on that site until if we have concerns on over that site.
Mr. Keesley, please. Oh, sorry,
Madam
Mr.
Mayor, it's
Bosman.
a question for me, not for Mr. Kearsley.
I'm sorry.
Councillor Mametti, there is no basis for a stop work. All the, in our view, all of the permits, the planning permits that have been issued, as well as the building permits, which were not issued by council, but which were issued by a private building surveyor, have all been appropriately and lawfully issued in compliance with the various legislations that that apply to those approvals. But as Mr. Benny had outlined in a response to a public question earlier tonight, we're having all of those reviewed, and on the basis of that review, if there is anything to be done, we will take it forward. But at this stage, there would be nothing in which we could issue a stop work on. So I think we need to just await the outcome of the peer review on these matters. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Councillor
Thank you,
Mametti.
Madam Mayor. That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich, please. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, no, just trying to unmute myself. Just a couple of questions tonight. First one, if I could get from Mr. Bosman, I would assume, just an update on a proposal and investigation about rezoning of the Cardinia Close that we were going to compile and send off to a planning minister. Thank you.
Mr. Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor Milkovich, I'm pleased to say that that is progressing very well, and we hope to see that out in the public domain as an exhibition fairly soon. So that has progressed quite quickly and without any complications to date.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Lovely. Thank you, Mr. Bosman. The residents will be very pleased to hear those sort of news. So thank you very much for that. Thanks for all your hard work. Now, the second question, I'm not sure to the relevant officer, up in Dandenong North on Gladstone Road, where the Faith Church is, part of one of our reserves, one of our parks, Manx Reserve, there is a half basketball court, which is sitting within a reserve and within a sort of kids playground area. However, it is, I understand from previous conversations that this is part of the water retaining basin or something or whatever. And what happens, even when there's a little bit of rain, that court stays, which is a concreted sort of surface, stays underwater for a good 4 or 5 days, not completely, but, you know, with large sort of puddles. I was wondering if there is a chance that we can maybe look into that and just to see if there's a way that we can inexpensively raise the surface or do something or improve the drainage just around that sort of basketball court. It is very well used court. A lot of the locals that live around that sort of area where Brady Road is, and even from the third up in Dandenong North, kids love to go there because there is, like I said, a kids playground, and then for the older kids there is a basketball court. But it's just, even in summer days, it's half of the time it's not usable at all. So I'm not sure who can answer, but if we can look at maybe doing something to stop the water coming onto the court and staying there for days on end. Thank you.
Mr. Keesley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. The main determinant of this will be whether or not it's a Melbourne Water retarding basin. They control all use within and around basins such as that. We can certainly ask the question, but I wouldn't be too positive about it at this stage. They tend to use those for the purpose of storage of water. And if the water takes a little bit longer to clear, they'll probably say that's just the natural nature of the water collection in that particular location. However, now that you've raised it, we will check to see whether it is ours or Melbourne Waters, and then we can take the appropriate action and provide you with information at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all from me from tonight.
Thank you. Councillor O'Reilly, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just got one question tonight to the Director of Engineering. Question without notice. It's been raised by a resident to me that Corrigan Road approaching Princess Highway, the lines were done, so were renewed, which is really good, but for some reason, the arrows weren't, so the white painted arrows weren't done at the same time. So just for my own edification, if the director could find out why that might be and get back to me, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley.
Yep, certainly, Councillor. We'll look into that and find out the reasons behind that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Tan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just unmute myself. Yes, I just want to report this is a few events I attended to the last 2 weeks. On the 14th of July, I attended the Frederick Wachter Reserve District Playground final design and for construction. I also attended the Ignite Program Startup program, which is for entrepreneur. Just want to congratulate our council staff who actually had done a great work since 2019. So we've got around 24 of our entrepreneurs this year. On the 15th of July, I also attended the Australian Animal Protection Society corporate night, which is a tour at the new facility. So we learn a bit about their work and their vision. Just want to congratulate their team as well for their great work. On the 22nd, I attended the Dandenong Wellbeing Centre, which is the new Oasis introduction and workshop. Just a question regarding to that as well. I know we did the facility study about the table tennis building that we're going to move out from the old facility. Do you have any update on the new location yet?
Mr. Keesley, please.
Yes, that matter will be coming to council in the coming months, but what I can inform the council on is that we've undertaken a significant consultation process and survey with the users of the current facility, and there are a significant number of those, and I've tried to find out whether any of them are actually performing in Japan at the moment, because I know
that's one person won the
Yeah.
Olympics.
Yeah, the club does have a very good reputation with creating Olympians for table tennis.
Yeah.
So at the moment, the sites for consideration really are coming down to possibly Springers in Tatterson Park and the basketball stadium, which is also the volleyball centre on Stud Road. So we're doing a piece of evaluation work on both of those options. And we are in discussions with those associations, and we will be bringing that back to council for some further consideration. And then I would say, based on that, probably some further consideration in future budgets ongoing. They will be able to use the current building they're in until very early 2025. So we do have a number of years where council will be able to consider where they are relocated to, if that's the decision council wishes to make.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Keesley. Councillor Tan.
Yeah, and my next question, I know, is regarding to the COVID restriction. How are we going with our capital work? Because with Ross Reserve, All Ability Playground, plus the change room, the toilet change room that meant to be completed by August. Is that when? What is our status at the moment?
Mr. Keesley, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Whilst the lockdowns aren't necessarily having an immediate impact on construction sites not being able to continue, we do know that there are a significant number of issues related to the supply of materials. Any materials that essentially have to come from overseas are being delayed generally due to the COVID impacts that are taking place in the countries where we are trying to source these products. So that's adding to a few delays with regards to the completion of the projects, but not to a point where we're getting too worried about it. It's just something that has to be considered as each project goes through its construction phase. So we're still pretty much on target with most of the capital works. I think we're hitting a target for last year's capital works at or above the 93% completion at this stage. So we are doing what we can. We're also having to, of course, consider very successfully, mind you, a considerable increase in funding from both state and federal governments to, I suppose, ignite and promote the opportunity to rebound from COVID. And we are, as you know, with Noble Park, with the NPAC building, we are and have been successful in getting substantial grants to essentially add to new projects that are above and beyond what we would have normally done this financial year and also for this coming financial year. So whilst COVID is a concern, I think we're trying to manage it as best we can, and our construction companies are doing the right thing by us by also trying to manage the impact related to the sourcing of materials and supplies.
Thank you. And the other one's about the Noble Park streetscape work. So right now, all I can see, I think they've done the speed hump, but that was it. So at the moment, are they stopping because of COVID restriction, or what's going on?
No, not as far as I'm aware. I could chase that up. We're not sensing any stopping of works based on COVID. That's the advice I'm getting, but I could certainly look at that particular project and provide you with some advice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keysborough.
Last question, just regarding to our road works, especially with potholes. So I'm not sure how's our program work. Is it like every financial year? Is that in late July that I remember? Because a lot of potholes, this is from Douglas Street on Hutton Road toward Springvale. So not just one, there's a few that's caused issue with especially with your car, with the tires, stuff like that. I've been also informed there's a pothole at Railway Parade as well. So there's a few here and there. So I mean, what's happening with our program with the road work?
Well, we have an annual program that's based on fixing issues related to potholes. So again, all I could advise, if councillors see or come across a pothole, or unfortunately their car may come across a pothole, certainly to let us know, and we will do our best. There are service levels depending on the size and depth of the pothole that in some cases requires almost immediate surfacing. There are others that may take a bit longer based on the fact that they might not be as deep. However, I will say that if there are potholes on Hutton Road or any road under the ownership and control of Vic Roads or the Department of Transport, then the wait will be much longer. We are continually informing Vic Roads, and we have done some letters recently, I think in the last 6 months, with regards to Hutton Road in particular, and trying to get that road up the ladder from the Vic Roads point of view can be considerably difficult when they are also dealing with a whole range of other roads that have similar issues and potholes. So if councillors do come across them, please go through the merit system and bring it to our attention, and we'll do our best when it comes to informing Vic Roads that they have an obligation to improve the treatment of their particular roads as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keysborough.
Thanks, Paul. That's all from me, Madam Mayor.
That's all. Councillor Trong, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question asked by a resident that he asked because his rapid beans was hit by someone at 9 times. He doesn't know which one, and now he would like to know, how can he apply to get another one from council? And also he asked me, does he have to pay for that?
The birds. The bins, yeah. Yeah, bin.
The bin.
Yeah. You, Mr. Keysborough, please.
Councillor, the best thing, if you could forward the details of the particular resident and the address directly to me, then we can get on with it and certainly replace the bin. The other option, if the resident wishes to, but it might be more complex, is to go onto the website and you can go through the process then. But I think in this case, if you just send me the details, I can get those directly onto the waste unit down at the operations centre, and the team will get one out to them within the next couple of days, if not sooner.
But does he have to pay?
That's something that I'm not familiar with. I wouldn't think so in terms of, but you know, it's usually the standard bins, unless it was an additional bin. unless they've got 2 yellow top bins or something like that, then no. If it's the standard one of the 3, then they'll just get it replaced.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all, Councillor Trong?
That's all.
Thank you. I'd like to pass on my sincere condolences to the family who lost their little boy in a house fire last night. I also wish the family members who are in hospital a speedy recovery. On Wednesday, the 14th of July, I attended the Rainbow Network online meeting. Later that morning, I attended the local government mayoral tasked supporting people seeking asylum online meeting. Also a councillor briefing, Frederick Watcher Reserve District Playground Design Update, and the launch of the Ignite program, startup program for entrepreneurs. On Thursday, the 15th of July, I attended the Melbourne City Football Club Business Roundtable. That afternoon, I attended the Australian Animal Protection Society Corporate Night, a tour of their new facility, and learn more about the work and vision of AABS. And as was mentioned before, that facility is fantastic, and they do fantastic work in rescuing animals that have been disowned or dumped. That night I attended the Lions Club of Dandenong changeover meeting. On the 22nd of July, I attended the Noble Park Revitalisation Board online meeting. And also that night a councillor briefing, Dandenong Wellbeing Centre New Oasis introduction and workshop, which was online. Thank you. Item number 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business... Oh, sorry, I did. I wrote it down first.
Didn't ask it.
Sorry. Mr Benny, questions taken on notice at the last council meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There were 27 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. All of those questions have now been responded to and the responses are in the minutes. However, there is one where further action is required, and rather naturally that's the ongoing seagull issue and measures to reduce the seagull population asked by Councillor Mehmeti. There is further work underway in relation to that item, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item number 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed at 8:42, and thank you very much for your attendance. Good night.